Hello, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I hope you've had a great week. Whatever you've been getting into and up to, I hope it's been good to you. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about living poetically, because it has been a theme that has been up since last Saturday when I taught my writing class, and then I took a poetry class the next day and the theme popped up there. And then I teach a movement and embodiment class once a month, and that was the theme that came up for that practice as well, is living poetically. And it's just been something that has sat with me all week. And today, in one of my containers at the very end, one of the ladies said something to the effect of, like, I feel kind of done and over like personal development right now, and I just want to live my life. And I'll be so for real. The reason why we do personal development work isn't so that there is this constant, steady downstream of things to fix. Personal development is not about fixing yourself. It's about creating more capacity to live fully, to live poetically. And we do the personal development work and the relational development work and the spiritual development work so that we can clear out the static, the interference, the energetic roadblocks that get in the way of being able to live a really beautiful, expressed, poetic life. Now, a poetic life to you will mean something different than it means to me. To me, living poetically isn't necessarily about seeing every single day like I'm in a romantic comedy, or trying to get to a state where everything is smooth and perfect all the time. For me, living poetically is allowing myself to be fully impacted by life, to let myself feel fully, to let myself feel deeply, to let myself experience the full range of what it means to be human. And that means, the pain and the upset, but also the wins and the expansion and everything in between. I have a system that is able to be responsive to life. And once you are in this pocket of being responsive to life, life does naturally become more poetic. It becomes more artistic. It becomes more rich in terms of the fulfillment that you're experiencing day to day. Because I will tell you, not every day is a good day over here. I'm human. I have bad days. I have hard days. I have harder seasons. That happens for me too. And when it does, I don't make it mean that there's something wrong with me that needs fixing. I see it as, oh, all right, there's something here that wants my attention. There's something here that wants to be felt, that wants to be experienced, that wants to be loved back into wholeness. And sometimes just shitty things happen. And if we make the quest of personal development about, if I do this, then I get this good outcome, we're still in that original coding of my behavior is essentially conditional. The things that I'm doing, I've done all this behavior modification in order to get the golden nugget. And if we're still running that same pattern in the background, and that's the thing that's influencing our choices, our behavior, how we relate, well, even if we get to the end destination, it's never going to feel great, because the pattern that binds us is still binding us. It's just taken on new language. It has, a new costume that it's wearing, but it's still the same, shadowy pattern that is not really a vibe. And so the reason that I personally am obsessed with personal development and relational development and spiritual development is because it gives me more tools to help me make sense of reality. It gives me more tools to be able to flow with reality. It gives me more context to work with when I'm trying to create or figure something out or navigate something challenging. I don't have to get stuck in the mud for as long. But the idea that doing a course or doing personal development somehow will magically absolve you from ever having problems again or ever having issues again, I think is one of the most challenging things that I see and that I'm frustrated by as a teacher, that the industry itself does not do a better job of reminding people that there's no quick fix and you're not inherently broken. Like, this idea that you're inherently broken and flawed is actually just a shame-based context for perceiving and living through. It's not actually the truth of who you are. The truth of who you are is someone who's perfect, whole, and complete. And you have adaptations, you have patterns, you have wounding that can have you act or behave or experience things that may be considered contrast. And through that contrast, you will learn how to tease out clarity, tease out more discernment, tease out your desires. Because there's no way to know what something is without knowing the flip side of it, of what it's not. If you don't have a reference point for what it's not, you don't have context for what it is. And so if you are here to experience a beautiful, creative life, you will likely have to also experience the flip side of that, what it's like if you don't. And what that does is it takes you to a choice point where you can activate your sovereignty and your agency and make a decision about the type of life you want to create for yourself. And when we get stuck in these binds of like personal development needs to fix me, there's always something to fix, there's always something to work on, there's always, things that are tough. When we get stuck in that bind, a lot of the time, two things are happening. Number one, we aren't taking action. And so when we don't take action, our systems are so intelligent that they know we need to burn off energy somehow. So it will direct you into looping mentally into a pattern or into a situation over and over and over as a way to an attempt to kind of burn off that energy. And so if we notice that we're feeling really flat or constricted or disenchanted by quote unquote the work, it's probably because we're not taking enough action to be living the work. So I don't really personally see the point in learning something if I'm not going to go and apply it. But a lot of people, there's a breakdown there of they'll learn something so they understand it intellectually, but the bridge to being able to embody it or bring it into their day-to-day life, that bridge is blocked. Sometimes that is a byproduct of, the coursework or the material or the facilitator. Most often, though, it's a result of the individual not taking action. of coming up with excuses and, really believing the internal narratives as to why I shouldn't take action. And all that does is keeps you stuck in an identity that replays same old, same old. Not really a vibe. Another thing that I see that can sometimes be the case is we're not expressing. So part of the work requires courage to express yourself, to express your desires, to express your needs, to express your upset, your frustrations, to have hard conversations, but also to have really beautiful conversations. To express yourself is not just using your voice physically, but it's also how you express when you move through the world. Like, how do you walk through the world? That is a form of your expression. How do you creatively express yourself? And so if these 3 forms of expression are closed, well, we're naturally going to feel disenchanted by the work because we're like, the work's not working. Because you have to work the work. And part of working the work is expressing what has been unexpressed for a very long time. So if we aren't telling the full truth, if we work with a therapist or a coach or a mentor, and we're not expressing the true thing, they can only work with you to the degree to which you tell the truth. And then there's the element of truth telling in your life. How honest are you being in your relationships? Do people really know you? Is what you say forward facing? Does it match what you're thinking internally? Because for a lot of people, there's a jarring split. There's a forward facing persona. They know, the right things to say. And then behind the scenes, behind the curtain, they're seething, or they're so upset, or they're really hurt, or they're really confused, or whatever it is. But the forward presenting experience does not match the internal experience. So there isn't coherence. When there isn't coherence, there's going to be a lot of interference, a lot of static, a lot of bumps in the road. And if you want to smooth that out, just work on bringing those 2 into alignment. Say what you mean and mean what you say. It's a simple concept, but it's not an easy thing to do. Because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And the reason it's not easy is because we have to bump up against the things that are unresolved. So this is why it's handy to do personal development work, to do relational development work, to do spiritual development work, because it'll give you tools and infrastructure to navigate that. When you go to express something that you're thinking, like the thing that you think, you're like, this is what's true for me. And then the sniper part comes in and takes you out. And it's like, you can't say that. If you say that, they might not like you. They might reject you. They might abandon you. They might think you're a bitch. They might hate you. Or this might cost you your job. It might cost you your relationship. It might cost you something. So play nice. Put on the persona. Put on the character and tell them what they want to hear, or, muddle down and muddy the truth. So like there's maybe a little inkling of truth in there, but not a whole lot. And then because of that incongruence, it also feeds whatever's going on behind the scenes. So if you have a split there and you're being nice forward facing, but behind the scenes, you're giving the fuck you, it just gives more momentum to that fuck you energy, which the more momentum that energy has, the more armor gets put around your heart and your expression. So it becomes this really challenging rabbit hole to get out of. But the solution of getting out of it is quite simple. It's telling the truth, expressing yourself, saying the things that you're afraid to say, and being able to hold the consequences of having said them. This doesn't mean you fire hose off like every mean thought you have in your head about someone. That's not it at all. This is about when you're in relationship with someone and you have an opportunity to express what's true. And in that moment, you choose to not express what's true, and instead you give a version of the truth or a lie, or you don't bring the truth forward. And that's what causes this internal split. And the more splits you have, the harder it's going to be to truly enjoy your life, because every split is a leak in your energy. And the more leaks we have, and the more masks we wear, and the more personas we have, the more armor we have to have. Because all of that false material, no one else may know, but you know that it's not truth. And so there's always this program running in the background, if we are behaving this way, that says, be on guard because you might get found out. Like, you need to constantly be on guard. And it's like that whack-a-mole game. Like, one thing comes up and you hit it, and then another one pops up over there and you got to hit it. And then it keeps like popping around because we actually haven't gotten down to the truth. And once you reveal the truth, there's nothing to hide. There's nothing to remember. There is nothing to protect yourself from. And yes, this does mean a lot of the time, if we've been out of integrity, that we have to face the process of restoring our integrity and holding and sitting with the impact of our choices and our actions on other people, and allowing that to mature us in our approach and strengthen our capacity to be honest and congruent. But like, this is a process that the work is there to help you navigate. That's why we do the work, is so that if we do have shame around these spots, the work is there to help you de-shame it. At least that's how I approach the work. That is the work that I do with people, is we largely spend a lot of time de-shaming things that have accumulated a backlog of shame for their entire lives. And you don't really realize how heavy shame is until it starts to alchemize. And once you alchemize it, all of a sudden, truth-telling becomes easier. You know, it's still likely going to be an edge for all of us. You know, there's going to be spots that are easy to tell the truth. And then there are things that we have more tenderness around that are harder to tell the truth. And it's always just a work in progress. Like, the hard spots get easier the more that you express. But the less you express, the harder life gets in general. And then if you're not expressing, and you're not taking action, you're literally creating this fester pool of density that your system is like, what are we doing? Can we catch a break here? And your access to having that more poetic, beautiful life where you actually go get to live and you get to follow your dreams and you get to create them into form and you get to create your dream relationship and you get to travel and you get to experience joy and delight regularly. That is a byproduct of setting a proper foundation, doing the internal infrastructure work of let me tend to everything that is in the way of my ability to express cleanly, powerfully, and congruently, and take action that is consistent with the outcome that I would like to have. Because people also can take action that doesn't move them in the direction of their dreams, you know? And so that becomes a very powerful skill set of telling the truth on yourself. Like, am I really taking action in a way that is moving the needle forward? Or am I playing out more hiding patterns? Am I, holding myself back? And the more I hold myself back, well, the less poetic life gets to be. Because even if someone does the emotional and spiritual bypass of like, everything is awesome and I'm not going to acknowledge any of the hard stuff in my life or in the world, la 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 la, not in my reality, that only lasts for so long. Those people, again, like there's a split in terms of what they forward present and then what happens behind closed doors with themselves when no one's watching. Those are the people who I have noticed. I have been in this industry as a coach since 2009. So I've worked with a lot of people and I have observed even more. And the types of people who emotionally and spiritually bypass tend to be very, very hard on themselves. And the bypassy behavior is often a front. And it's an attempt to ward off the pain that is bubbling underneath that has not metabolized. Whether it's pain, whether it's shame, usually it's a blend of both that just hasn't metabolized properly. And any pain that hasn't metabolized properly, it does impact your expression and it impacts the action that you take. And so that is why I always see this very symbiotic relationship with the work and living artistically and creatively and poetically, because they need each other. The work supports the foundation and the conditions for you to move through life in a way where you are willing to let go of anything that is weighing you down, that isn't serving anymore. The way that you are willing to get your internal house in order so that the way you perceive the world is one that serves who you're becoming. Doesn't mean that you're in denial of reality, but you frame it in a way where it's not going through that victim consciousness filter, because you've eradicated the victim consciousness filter and you've replaced it with personal responsibility, sovereignty, and agency. And when that's the filter and we can move through life with more mobility, more fluidity, more responsivity, you can respond to life instead of reacting against it. That's when things become poetic. That's when an everyday interaction becomes art. That's when you're walking down the street, and because your brain is not going a million miles an hour with all of the ruminating thoughts, and your body's not in a constant state of dysregulation, you can notice the squirrel running up the mossy tree. And in that moment, you're like, whoa, I'm living in a poem. I'm living in a movie. I'm living in a live piece of art right now. And from that place of full aliveness and presence with what is, you are then able to masterfully construct your reality. You can construct what it is that you are going to devote yourself to, devote your life to, devote your mission to. And it allows you to access more of your creative faculties. You know, I am convinced that every single person is creative on some level. I don't think everyone's an artist, but I think everyone is creative. And living poetically, to me, is you being in right relationship with whatever form of creativity is true for you, and you allowing that to express in the world as its own form of art. And when you allow your God-given gifts to rumble through you and create through you, you start to code in a very different energetic to the collective. Quite frankly, I think we need a lot more people doing that. Because there's a lot of people who are plugged into a certain consciousness and they keep feeding the fucking machine. They keep feeding these systems that literally just want to extract you and suck you dry. Like, ew, gross. No, thank you. Unsubscribe. Like, I'm in this realm. I understand my power. I understand my limitations, but I also understand that I am much more powerful than those systems would have me believe, aka why we do the work to deconstruct all of that bullshit out of you so that you can open up the field of potentiality within yourself. You can live in the field of possibility, and you can make your relationships a work of art. You can make your work a work of art. Your life becomes a work of art. And that is something that I feel obviously very strongly and passionately about, because I do see it being one of the factors that will move humanity in a much more constructive, expansive direction. And I am not here to fight against these old systems. Like, that's not a good use of my energy. The better use of my energy, and you might be on the same team, maybe not, is to build new infrastructure. And I don't need the old one to be destroyed and disassembled and completely obliterated before the new one is built. We're building a whole new paradigm over here, and a whole new movement of people who are connected in their body, who are living from this place of expression, and they are taking action to build and create and construct the world that they want to live in. Whether that is on a relational level, whether that's on a community level, whether that is in their family systems, whether that is in their work, however it manifests, they are committed to something more extraordinary than what was handed to them. And when we do that, we are literally writing a whole new reality into form. So instead of using your creative faculties for worry and emotionally rehearsing the things that you don't want to happen, or the things that you're really angry about, and you plug all of your creative energy into being pissed about it, but you never actually cross the bridge over into, okay, if I'm so pissed about this, what am I creating that makes that obsolete? How am I still energetically hooked in there? And how do I unhook myself? And I have a really powerful process that I take clients through to do that unhooking, so that we can see like what the energetic baseline and foundation is of those systems, of those patterns that we get so like about, and we find where that energetic lives in you, and then we start to unwind it so that you're no longer connected energetically to it and feeding it. The only way that these systems and entities can possibly be eradicated is by starving them. It's like a fucking parasite. If you keep feeding the parasite, it doesn't die. In order for the parasite to die, you have to make the terrain so inhospitable, and you have to starve it of the nutrients that it's feeding off of. And then you have to have a binder to flush it out. And so the same is true when we are working with our paradigms and these bigger conversations. And one of the ways that those systems stay in play is that they feed off of your life force energy, even if you're outraged, especially if you're outraged, because it's so addictive, and it'll kick in this part of wanting to be righteous. And so it keeps you looping in that system instead of literally breaking out of it, breaking that matrix, breaking that paradigm, and figuring out the energetic core of it and tending to that within yourself, so that you are able to take action in the direction of what you do want to see more of in the world. And being able to express yourself in a way that literally through your words, it weaves new possibilities into form. Through your relationships, you code a whole new way of being that changes the trajectory of that person or your children or your grandchildren or your nieces and nephews or your friends or your family. Because those types of moves really do move the needle forward. And it's unsexy, you know? And it requires a pretty big conviction to give up the addiction to allowing your energy to be siphoned, to be hooked into these cycles and ways of being that don't actually serve you. Because once we realize like how much energy we have burned by ruminating in our heads or holding ourselves back, holding back our expression or not taking action, it can be very sobering. And we need that sobriety to lock in, to open you up so that you are actually creating from a place of emotional sobriety. You're not creating from a place of being emotionally drunk or emotionally completely shut down. We come into creating a life that is poetic from a very emotionally sober place of like, okay, the palette is clear, the chalkboard is clear, the windows are clear. What do we want to create? The canvas is blank. What are we creating on it? And then from that place of, well, how do I want to create myself alive today? That's when you start to notice different things. That's when you start to notice the squirrel on the mossy tree. Or you notice that, oh, look, there's actually like fluffy clouds in the sky today. What do those shapes remind me of? A little bit of daydreaming. It allows you to observe interactions between people and notice when love is present. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to be out in public and look for evidence of love. So whether that's couples in love or parents and their babies, or people and their pets, or, strangers with each other, and just being kind and generous. Because those types of moments, when I clock them, I'm like, oh, fuck, I am living in a wildly beautiful piece of art right now. And this is why I do the work, so that my mindset and my body can tune and turn towards that which pleases and delights me, because what pleases and delights me nourishes me, and it gives me the reserves to navigate the things that do not please and delight me. And it's not about turning away from them completely. It's just, I need to be well resourced in order to navigate that shit. And to navigate that and to be well resourced, I have to be looking for the evidence that actually brings me to life, that actually shows me that the things that I want for myself and my life and the world are possible. And when we live like that, and we also have a commitment to expressing ourselves honestly, openly, being transparent, just allowing the world to know who we are, because the world won't know who you are until you express who you are. And also being willing to be the type of person who takes congruent action that moves the needle forward with the type of world that you want to see, moves the needle forward with your work, any creative projects, your family, your relationships, your dreams, all of the things. And when we are someone who takes action and we start to relate to ourselves that way, we're like, fuck, nothing can really take me out. And there will be things in life that are hard, and I know that that will happen and they'll come, but I know that I've got me. I know that I live in a really beautiful, poetic universe filled with people who are good to each other, which means when you have those moments when you need to fall apart, you can fall apart inside of community, inside of connections where they really know you, they really get you, because you've been so willing to be expressed in who you are. And you allow that expression to be the mating call for your people. You allow the action that you take to move you in the direction of where those people are and where those opportunities are. So, all that to say, you've got a weekend ahead of you if you're listening to this when it comes right out, or whenever you listen to it. My invitation to you is, from this moment forward, for the rest of your day, the rest of your evening, or your weekend, to make a habit and a devotion and a commitment to looking for evidence of things that please and delight you. Express yourself. Say something that's on your heart, on your mind, that you've been holding back, but if you were to say it, would set you free. Let yourself have that gift. And then take action in a way that's consistent and congruent with the things that you want for yourself in your life. And if you would like support in de-shaming, alchemizing shame, any of those blocks that come up around expression or taking action or moving in the direction of creating a really beautiful and poetic life for yourself, please do reach out. There is 2 options in the link in the show notes. One is for one-to-one and one is for my group program. Both of them are available right now for enrollment. So if you're feeling that call, I am opening space for 2 one-to-ones. And my one-to-one is a longer term container, minimum 6 months. We do 2 deep dives a month. And I like to focus those sessions primarily on like what nourishes you, like nourishment, desire, relationality, love, all of the things that you want to create. And we get in there and we look like what's going on energetically, what's going on emotionally that is either supporting the things that you want to create or is causing some interference. And if there's interference, we clean it up. We tend to it. We de-shame it so that you can hold your history and your present and your future from a place of approval. And from that place of approval, you're unstoppable. Okay? So all of that's in the show notes if you would like to take it deeper and move forward in that direction. And I love you. Thank you for being here. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, please do rate it and subscribe, leave a review. There's also an option if you'd like to contribute to the podcast that's in the show notes as well. And you can leave a little donation. You can buy me a coffee, anything that you would like to support the continuation of the show. So thank you for being here, and I'll be back next week with something new. Love you. Bye.